Hello, I'm Gary Huck. I'm a political cartoonist. You're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the Art Up Gallery, where we're presenting a People's History project. The work you'll be seeing on the walls is the illustrations by Mike Konopacki, illustrating this new book published April 1st, 2008, The People's History of the American Empire. The book is based on Howard Zinn's A People's History of the American Empire. This exhibit is based on the work accomplished to make a graphic adaptation of an existing history, a monumental task. In order to accomplish this, Mike Konopacki, working with historian Paul Buell and writers Dave Wagner and Kathy Wilkes, worked very hard to integrate the idea that Howard Zinn and Howard Zinn's voice was more than necessary to make this book effective. So the authors and the illustrator decided to integrate Howard as a character within the book. In order to do that, they included, from a separate publication, an autobiography of Howard Zinn, panels of how Howard came to understand his concept of the American Empire. After the reader becomes more comfortable with the idea of Howard Zinn presenting a lecture throughout the book, he's then integrated as a recurring character, sometimes giving information, other times drawing from the history to contemporary history, which of course is the gift that Howard gave. Part of what Art Up decided to do was what we're starting to call adjupop. And to us, adjupop is the idea of integrating political art and contemporary political analysis within a gallery in downtown Pittsburgh by bringing forms such as political cartoon, in this case, a illustrated history, and then displaying it not only with an emphasis on the politics, but also the emphasis on the art itself. So in a very Lichtenstein manner, we blew up selected panels and put them on the wall of the gallery. This is a section taken from the artwork done on the Vietnam War that's within the book. But as you can see, the panels stand as very beautiful pieces of artwork separate from the book itself. So Art Up, deciding to do this exhibit, was very mindful that they also were creating an art exhibit and not just a lecture series on American history. One of the tasks involved in doing this exhibit, we thought would be educational and beneficial to show sketches that Mr. Konopacki used in order to prepare the finished panels for the book. Mike draws on tracing paper that he then inks and then scans into a computer and uses Photoshop to do the finished work. Mike was one of the first cartoonists to begin to integrate electronic medium into his work. These are sketches from the section on Wounded Knee, which opens the book. You can once again see how Mike Konopacki, how good a draftsperson he is, and also how the transition went from pencil sketch to ink sketch. And later on, you can see the finished work using the Photoshop process. Another important aspect Mike brought into the book was the idea that it was necessary to use existing historical photographs. This is an innovative contribution to the graphic form, reminding the reader periodically throughout the comic that they are in fact reading history and not reading a graphic novel. I like to refer to it as the history emerging from behind the drawings. One of the most stirring chapters in the book is dealing with the U.S. invasion of Puerto Rico. After the Spanish-American War, the United States became very hungry for empire building and chose to invade Puerto Rico. And the author Mark Twain became very much involved in the protest movement against the invasion of the Philippines. Mike, throughout the book, used historical figures to narrate certain chapters. So again, Art Up, as an art gallery, decided to blow up this particular section. And partially because the invasion of the Philippines very closely mimics the rationale to our invasion of Iraq. Not in the sense of connecting to an event like 9/11, but the idea that we were bringing democracy to the people of the Philippines. What you're seeing now are earlier sketches that were used at a meeting in New York City that helped to establish with the publisher, Henry Holt Company, the idea of what the graphic novel would, what form it would take, and how Mike planned to integrate existing historical photos into those pages. Not all of the images you're seeing now were used in the final book, but you see the integration of photographs, contemporary and historical, as well as Howard Zinn and Mark Twain appearing as narrators within the pages of the book. For the gallery, the curator, Tavia LaFollette, asked Mike Konopacki to recreate the image of the American flag that Mark Twain designed after confronting the invasion of the Philippines. He suggested in an article that he wrote that the American flag should replace its stripes, the white stripes representing purity, leave the red stripes representing blood, and the field of stars to be replaced with skull and crossbones. So Mike Konopacki recreated the flag digitally for this exhibit. And finally, Mike Konopacki, for this exhibit, included further musings on the idea of the American Empire. Using acrylic and Photoshop collage and photo collage, he reinterpreted bubblegum cards that first appeared in America during the 1950s when the film War of the Worlds created a minor stir with the idea of having these bubblegum cards. And so Mike recreates these images using photo collage and acrylic paint to compare the Mars attacks with, of course, the invasion of Iraq. Each of the pieces are original acrylic paintings on canvas with photo collage. Each painting is based on an existing bubblegum card, with the exception of number 5, entitled The Waterboard Torture, where Mike introduces a new aspect to the War of the Worlds with a direct connection to the use of waterboarding. It seems like a fitting place to end this brief tour of Art Up People's History Project with the cover that